You're back?
Yes, I just came in from work.
Good, because rent expired yesterday.
I thought we still had till next week.
Landlord called me this morning. So send your share, today.
Hey, give me a little time. I haven't even rested.
Rest? Before anything, I'm hungry.
50-50 marriage and I still come home after work to meet this. Nobody helped me with anything. Will I still continue like this?
In the small town of Umuaka, everyone knew Amaka as the quiet girl who smiled even when life beat her hard. She was not the most beautiful girl in the village, but there was something soft about her face, a kindness that made people feel safe. Her eyes always looked tired, as if they had seen too much suffering too early. At 26, she had already buried both parents and learned what hunger felt like. That morning, the sun rose gently over Umuaka, but Amaka's heart was heavy. Today was her wedding day. Women filled the compound, tying wrappers, laughing loudly, and pounding pepper in mortars. Someone was frying meat, someone else was boiling rice. From outside, everything looked joyful. But inside Amaka's chest, fear sat quietly like an unwanted guest. She sat on a low wooden stool in her aunt's room while two women rubbed powder on her skin. "You are lucky, Amaka," one of them said happily. "Marriage has finally come." Amaka forced a smile. Lucky. That word sounded strange to her. Her aunt, Auntie Ifunanya, entered the room and looked at her closely. "Why are you quiet?" her aunt asked. "Today is your big day." Amaka lowered her eyes. "I'm just thinking," she replied softly. "Thinking about what?" Auntie Ifunanya asked. Amaka wanted to say the truth. She wanted to say she was scared, that she did not really know the man she was about to marry, that she had noticed the way he talked, the way he commanded, the way he never lifted a finger when others walked. But she said nothing. Her aunt sighed and sat beside her. "Listen to me," Auntie Ifunanya said gently. "Life is hard. Marriage is not perfect. But at least you will have a roof over your head. You will eat. You will not beg again." Those words settled heavily in Amaka's heart. You will not beg again. That was why she said yes when Chukwudi came. Chukwudi was not poor. He was not rich either. He was tall, dark, and always serious. He spoke like a man who believed he was always right. When he came to ask for her hand in marriage, he did not talk much about love. He talked about responsibility. A woman must know her duty, he had said that day, sitting proudly in the living room. Marriage is work. Amaka had nodded. She thought all marriages were work. Nobody warned her properly. Nobody asked her what she truly wanted. They only reminded her that she had no parents and no land. So she agreed. Now, as drums sounded outside, Amaka stood up and adjusted her wrapper. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Smile," one woman whispered. "People are watching." She smiled. Outside, Chukwudi stood confidently among his friends, laughing. He looked relaxed. He looked like a man who was about to gain something valuable. The traditional marriage rites were done. Later, the church wedding followed. Vows were exchanged. "Do you promise to love and cherish her?" the pastor asked. "I do," Chukwudi replied firmly. "Do you promise to submit to him?" the pastor asked Amaka. "Yes," she answered quietly. The crowd clapped. But deep inside her, something tightened. That evening, after the celebrations, Amaka followed her husband to his house. Her new home. The house was small but neat. A single bedroom, a small sitting room, a kitchen behind. Amaka looked around with mixed feelings. At least, it was shelter. She removed her shoes and placed them neatly by the door. She entered the kitchen and began to wash plates immediately, even though her body was tired from the long day. Chukwudi sat on a chair, removed his cap, and watched her. After some time, he cleared his throat. "Amaka," he called. "Yes, my husband," she answered quickly. "Come," he said. She wiped her hands and came to stand before him. He looked at her seriously. I want us to understand each other from today, he said. I don't like laziness. I am not lazy, Amaka replied softly. He nodded. Good, because in my house, a woman does everything herself. She blinked. Everything? She asked carefully. Yes, he replied. Cooking, cleaning, fetching water, making money if necessary. Amaka swallowed. I thought marriage is partnership, she said slowly. Chukwudi frowned. Who taught you that? He asked sharply. Marriage is responsibility, and the wife carries most of it. Her heart beat faster. What about the husband? She asked, her voice shaking. He leaned forward. My own duty is to lead, he said, not to wash plates. Amaka nodded slowly. She did not want trouble. Not on the first night. That night, she cooked rice and stew. Even though her legs were weak, she served him respectfully. He ate quietly. After eating, he stood up and went to the bedroom. Amaka remained behind to wash plates alone. Later that night, she lay beside him on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep refused to come. She remembered her mother's voice from years ago. Marriage should give you peace, my daughter. Tears filled her eyes. Will I find peace here? She wondered. The next morning answered her question. Before the cock crowed twice, Chukwudi shook her awake. Wake up, he said. I'm hungry. Amaka jumped up quickly. She went to fetch water from the well, cooked breakfast, swept the compound, and washed clothes. Chukwudi sat outside, pressing his phone. When she brought his food, he looked at her and said casually, After this, go and look for something to do. We need money. She froze. I thought you are working, she said. I am, he replied. But your support is needed. Support. That word echoed in her head. Days passed. Weeks passed. Amaka's body began to ache constantly. Her palms grew rough. Her eyes lost their shine. She worked all day. When she returned tired, he complained that food was late. One evening, as she bent down to scrub the floor, her back suddenly gave a sharp pain. She cried out softly. Chukwudi looked at her. Why are you shouting? He asked. My back hurts, she said weakly. Please, can you help me just today? He laughed. Help you? He repeated. I didn't marry you to become your housemaid helper. Something broke inside Amaka that night. She lay on the floor later, staring into darkness, holding her aching body, and for the first time since the wedding, a dangerous thought entered her mind. What if this marriage is a trap? She closed her eyes, unaware that the worst was yet to come. The days after that night began to blend into each other, like suffering with no calendar. Every morning in Umuaka, before the sun fully rose, Amaka was already awake. The sound of the cock crowing no longer startled her. Her body had learnt pain. Her eyes opened automatically, even when her heart wanted to stay asleep. She would sit up slowly on the bed, careful not to wake Chukwudi, though he never cared if she was tired. One morning, as she quietly reached for her wrapper, Chukwudi turned and spoke without opening his eyes. Make tea first, he said. I don't want to wait. Yes, my husband, Amaka replied softly. She tied her wrapper and walked to the kitchen. The floor was cold under her feet. Her back still hurt from the previous day, but she ignored it. She boiled water, made tea, and fried akara. As usual, she served him kneeling slightly, placing the food before him respectfully. He ate slowly, scrolling through his phone. After a few minutes, he looked up. What is this? He asked. Akara and tea, she replied. He frowned. No bread? He asked. There was no money to buy bread yesterday, she said carefully. He dropped the spoon. So, what have you been doing with your money? He asked sharply. Amaka felt her heart jump. I used it to buy foodstuff, she replied. He shook his head. You women are careless, he said. From today, when you make money, bring it to me. I will manage it. Amaka opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. She nodded. Yes, my husband. That was how her small freedom disappeared. From that day, whatever she earned from washing clothes for people, frying snacks by the roadside, or helping in the market, Chukwudi collected it. He never asked how tired she was. He never thanked her. In the evenings, when she returned home with dust on her feet and sweat on her face, he would be sitting comfortably, waiting for food. One evening, she came home late, exhausted. Her legs felt like they were made of wood. Why are you late? Chukwudi asked angrily. I was helping Mama Nkechi at the market, Amaka replied. She needed extra hands. So? He snapped. Does that mean I should starve? I'm sorry, she said quickly. I will cook now. She rushed to the kitchen. As she cooked, tears dropped silently into the pot. She wiped her face quickly. Crying would not reduce the pain. That night, as they lay on the bed, Amaka gathered courage. My husband, she said quietly. What is it? He asked, his eyes still on his phone. I have been very tired lately, she said. Can we maybe share some work? Even just sometimes? He laughed loudly. Share work? He repeated. Did your mother share work with your father? I don't know, she replied honestly. But I know she was not treated like this. Chukwudi sat up suddenly. Be careful how you talk, he warned. Don't compare houses. In my house, things are done my way. She fell silent. The room felt heavy. The next day, her body betrayed her. While washing clothes by the well, her head began to spin. The sun felt too hot. The bucket slipped from her hand, and she fell to her knees. People rushed to her. Amaka, Mama Nkechi cried. What is wrong? I don't know, Amaka whispered. I feel weak. They helped her sit on a stone. Have you eaten today? Mama Nkechi asked. No, Amaka replied. I wanted to finish washing first. Mama Nkechi looked at her with concern. Marriage should not kill you, she said quietly. Those words followed Amaka home that evening. When she reached the house, Chukwudi was already angry. Food is not ready, he asked. I was sick, she replied weakly. I fainted at the well. He stared at her. And you still walked home? He asked. Yes, she said. Then you are not sick enough, he replied coldly. Go and cook. Her heart sank. That night, Amaka cried openly for the first time since her marriage. Her shoulders shook as she sobbed quietly in the kitchen. God, she whispered. Did I make a mistake? Days turned into weeks. Amaka became thinner. Her cheeks sank. Her eyes lost their sparkle. Neighbors began to notice. One afternoon, her childhood friend Ngozi visited. Amaka, Ngozi exclaimed. What happened to you? You look like someone who has been carrying stones. Amaka forced a smile. I am fine, she said. Ngozi looked around. Where is your husband? He went out, Amaka replied. Ngozi lowered her voice. Are you happy? She asked directly. Amaka hesitated. Words gathered in her throat, heavy and dangerous. I am managing, she finally said. Ngozi touched her hand. Managing is not living, she said. That evening, when Chukwudi returned, Ngozi was still there. They greeted him politely. After Ngozi left, Chukwudi turned to Amaka. I don't like that girl, he said. Why? Amaka asked. She asks too many questions, he replied. Don't allow her to put ideas in your head. Amaka said nothing, but ideas were already growing. One night, while scrubbing the floor, her back pain returned fiercely. She dropped the brush and sat down, breathing heavily. Please, she called out weakly. Can you help me just today? Chukwudi, looked at her with annoyance. Help you with what? He asked. With cleaning, she replied. I'm in pain. He stood up angrily. So now you want to turn me into a woman? He asked loudly. No, she said quickly. I just need help. He shook his head. If you cannot do housework, then what are you useful for? He asked. Those words pierced her like a knife. She stared at him in shock. Useful. Was that all she was? That night, she did not sleep. She stared at the ceiling, her heart pounding. Something inside her was slowly dying, but something else was slowly waking up. The next morning, as she fetched water from the well, she overheard two women talking. Some women suffer because they think marriage is the only way, one said. Yes, the other replied, but sometimes the marriage is worse than poverty. Amaka froze. She carried the water home slowly. That evening, as she served Chukwudi food, he pushed the plate aside. Where is the rest of the money? He asked. I gave you everything, she replied. He looked at her suspiciously. Are you hiding money from me? He asked. No, she said quickly. He stood up and walked toward her. Don't lie to me, he warned. Fear filled her chest. For the first time, she realized something terrifying. This was not just suffering, this was control. And as she lay on the bed that night, listening to his heavy breathing, one question burned in her mind. If I stay, will I survive? After that night, something changed in Amaka. Not outside, inside. She still woke before dawn, still fetched water, still cooked, cleaned, worked, and served. But her silence was no longer weakness. It was observation. She stopped explaining herself. She stopped begging. She stopped crying in front of Chukwudi. Instead, she watched him carefully, the way a wounded animal watches its hunter. She noticed how he depended on her for everything, yet acted like he was doing her a favor by allowing her to stay in his house. She noticed how he did not know how to light the stove, wash his clothes, or even boil water. She noticed how his pride was bigger than his strength. One morning, after she served him food, he pushed the plate forward. The soup is too salty, he said. I'm sorry, Amaka replied calmly. She picked the plate and returned to the kitchen. She did not argue. She did not explain. That surprised him. He expected her to beg. Later that day, Amaka went to the market to help a woman sell roasted corn. The sun was hot and smoke filled the air, but for the first time in months, she felt something close to peace. The woman, Mama Ebere, watched her closely. You are quiet, Mama Ebere said. Too quiet. Amaka smiled faintly. I am just tired, she replied. Mama Ebere shook her head. No, she said, that is not tiredness. That is a woman thinking deeply. Amaka did not reply. That evening, when she returned home, Chukwudi asked immediately, how much did you make today? Not much, she replied. Bring it, he said. She handed over the money without complaint. He counted it and frowned. This is small, he said. She nodded. Yes, she replied simply. He stared at her suspiciously. You are too calm these days, he said. What are you planning? Nothing, she replied. But that was a lie. Something had started forming in her mind. 2 days later, Ngozi returned. This time, Chukwudi was not around. Ngozi entered the house and gasped. Amaka, you are fading, she said softly. What is happening here? Amaka wanted to lie, but the truth spilled out. He does not help me, Amaka said quietly. He takes my money. He insults me. He believes I exist to serve. Ngozi covered her mouth. Why didn't you tell me earlier? She asked. I was ashamed, Amaka replied. I thought suffering was normal. Ngozi held her hands. Suffering is not love, she said firmly. And marriage is not slavery. Those words hit Amaka's heart like thunder. That night, she could not sleep. She thought of her parents. She thought of the life she ran from. She thought of how she entered this marriage with fear, not love. And she asked herself a dangerous question. If I survived poverty, why am I afraid to survive this? The next morning, something unusual happened. Chukwudi woke up late. He came out of the bedroom, rubbing his eyes. "Where is my breakfast?" he asked. Amaka looked at him calmly. "I have not made it yet," she said. He frowned. "Why?" he asked. "I was tired," she replied. Silence filled the room. "What do you mean you were tired?" he asked angrily. "I mean my body needed rest," she said. He laughed mockingly. "Rest?" he said. "You sleep every night." She looked at him directly. "So do you," she replied. That shocked him. "Watch how you talk," he warned. She nodded. "Yes, my husband." But her eyes did not drop. That day, she did something different. When she went to the market, she met Mama Ebere again. "Mama," Amaka said hesitantly, "do you need help every day?" Mama Ebere looked surprised. "Yes," she replied. "But the work is hard." "I am not afraid of hard work," Amaka said. Mama Ebere studied her face. "I will pay you small," she said. "That is okay," Amaka replied. "But I want to save some money." Mama Ebere smiled knowingly. From that day, Amaka began to hide a small portion of her earnings. Very small, almost nothing, but it was hers. Every time she hid it, her heart beat fast, fear mixed with hope. One evening, Chukwudi noticed she came home smiling faintly. "What is making you happy?" he asked suspiciously. "Nothing," she replied. "Are you hiding money?" he asked again. "No," she replied calmly. He stepped closer. "If I find out you are lying," he began. She met his eyes. "What will you do?" she asked quietly. He froze. He was not used to that question. He turned away angrily. "Don't provoke me," he muttered. That night, Amaka slept deeply for the first time in months. Days passed. The money she hid grew slowly. Not enough to escape yet, but enough to dream. Then one evening, Chukwudi came home earlier than usual. He found Amaka sitting quietly, counting something in her lap. "What is that?" he asked sharply. Her heart jumped. She closed her palm quickly. "Nothing," she said. He rushed toward her and grabbed her wrists. "Open your hand," he demanded. Her breath caught. Slowly, she opened her palm. There were a few crumpled notes. His face darkened. "So you have been stealing from me?" he shouted. "I did not steal," she said, her voice shaking. "It is my money. Everything you earn belongs to me," he shouted. People outside began to gather. "Give it to me," he yelled. She hesitated. That hesitation changed everything. He raised his hand. At that moment, Amaka understood something very clearly. This marriage had crossed a line. And once a line is crossed, nothing ever returns to normal. She looked at his raised hand. Then, slowly lifted her eyes to his face. "No," she said quietly. The word hung in the air like fire. The people outside gasped. Chukwudi froze. "What did you say?" he asked. "I said no," she repeated. Her voice was calm, but her heart was racing. She did not know what he would do next. But she knew one thing for sure. She was done being afraid. The compound was silent. Too silent. The neighbors who had gathered outside stood still, their eyes fixed on Chukwudi's raised hand and Amaka's calm face. Nobody spoke. Even the birds seemed to pause. Chukwudi's hand trembled in the air. You said no? He asked slowly, as if he had not heard well. Yes, Amaka replied again. Her voice was low but steady. I said no. The word tasted strange in her mouth, but it felt right. Chukwudi laughed suddenly, a dry, angry sound. So now you have grown wings, he mocked. Is it your friends outside that gave you courage? Amaka shook her head. No, she said. My suffering gave me courage. That sentence hit harder than a slap. The neighbors murmured among themselves. Amaka, Mama Nkechi said softly from outside, are you okay? Amaka nodded. Yes, Mama, she replied. Chukwudi lowered his hand slowly. His eyes burned with anger, but something else was there too. Fear. You think you can challenge me in my own house? He asked. Amaka looked around the room. The small room where she had cried alone, where she had walked without rest, where she had lost herself piece by piece. This house was built with my sweat too, she said. I cooked here, I cleaned here, I paid bills here, I worked here. So, Chukwudi snapped, that is your duty. No, she replied calmly, that is partnership, and you refused it. He scoffed. You are still my wife, he said. You have nowhere to go. Amaka inhaled deeply. I came here because I was afraid of poverty, she said. But I have learned something. He folded his arms. What? He asked sarcastically. I survived poverty, she said. I will survive without you. The neighbors gasped. Chukwudi's face twisted. You think life outside is easy? He asked. You will suffer. Amaka nodded. Yes, she said. But I will suffer with dignity. That night, she packed a small bag and her small savings hidden carefully. Chukwudi watched from the doorway. You will come back, he said, confidently. Women like you always do. Amaka looked at him one last time. No, she replied. Women like me wake up. She stepped out of the house. The night air felt different, free and cool. Ngozi rushed forward and hugged her tightly. You are brave, Ngozi whispered. No, Amaka replied softly. I am tired. They walked away together. Life did not become easy immediately. Amaka slept on Ngozi's floor at first. She woke early and went to the market. She worked for Mama Ebere again, roasting corns, carrying loads, saving every small coins. But this time, nobody took her money. Nobody insulted her, and nobody controlled her. Weeks turned into months. Amaka's body grew stronger. Her eyes regained light. Her laughter returned slowly. One afternoon, she passed by her former house. The compound was dirty. Clothes were piled everywhere. Chukwudi sat outside looking thinner, confused and tired. He did not see her at first. Then he looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Chukwudi stood up. Amaka, he said quietly, life is hard. She nodded. Yes, she replied. I didn't know it was this hard, he admitted. She looked at him with no anger, no joy. Now you know, she said. Come back, he said softly. We can talk. She shook her head. I talked for months, she replied. You did not listen. He looked down. I was wrong, he said. She studied his face. Being wrong is not enough, she said. Change is. He had no answer. She turned and walked away. This time she did not look back. Years later in Humaka, people tell Amaka's story quietly. About the woman who entered marriage out of fear. About the house that drained her soul. About the silence that became strength. About the day she chose herself. And Amaka, she built a small business. She helped other women. She laughed freely. She slept in peace. She never said marriage was bad. She only said one thing. Marriage without partnership is not love. It is slow destruction. And with that truth, our story ended. not in tears, but in freedom. Sometimes people enter marriage not because of love, but because they are running from hunger, shame, or fear. But marriage should never be a place where one carries all the pains, all the work, and all the sacrifice alone. A home without partnership becomes a prison. A marriage without respect slowly destroys the soul. Amaka's story teaches us that suffering is not proof of love, and silence is not obedience. True strength is knowing when to stay and when to walk away. She did not leave because she hated her husband. She left because she chose life, dignity, and peace.